Hey ladies, it is time to talk finance. And this is a topic that kind of baffled me some time ago. It was something that made me nervous and it made me uncomfortable. But these days, it makes me feel empowered. It makes me feel super excited for the future. And just a couple of years ago, it would have been completely different. But these days, I'm feeling very comfortable in my financial skin. So I wanted to share that with you guys because I know a lot of women, not only women who are in relationships, but women in general who feel like very miffed, very uncertain about what numbers mean and what finances are and how they should conduct themselves. And so I thought, I'm going to share my journey with you, let you know what I was in, what I did, and like resources I've used to come further into the future. So why did I choose this topic? Well, I was just talking to this very lovely woman, Vanessa, just yesterday. And we were talking about how so many women are stuck in really unhappy relationships, especially here in Switzerland, because there are these guys who go out, they find themselves a wife in some other country like Brazil or Thailand or the Philippines or some other, less privileged country or some other place, and they bring them back to Switzerland, and then they're kind of, made to feel unworthy. They're made to feel less than because this guy who is financially stable has brought them to this country of riches and milk and honey. And then when there's any kind of complaint, the guy completely ignores them and feels like, well, I brought you from wherever you were. You should be just happy to be here. She was telling me that she's coaching a lot of women and speaking with a lot of women who are in extremely volatile marriages or relationships. There's a lot of verbal abuse, there's physical abuse, and it's all surrounding money because they don't have the financial capability to do something else. They say their first reaction is, well, how am I going to survive? That was my first reaction when I wanted to get out of my marriage, in fact. And I was like, okay, I know for sure I want to get out of this marriage, but how am I going to survive? Luckily, I had a business, so I saw that, push comes to shove, I can make cakes from home and I can figure it out some way. But having been in a certain situation for a period of time, it gets your ego involved, makes you say, well, I could struggle and scrape to get by, but why would I do that if I'm already here? Like, why would I want to go back to this place? My answer to you is because you deserve it. You deserve a happy life, and no Chanel purse, no trip to Fiji, no Louis Vuitton shoes are worth you being in misery. That's what I'm going to say first. But a lot of women, they just say that I don't want to go back to where I came from. And that was definitely my reaction as well. I don't want to go back to where I came from. But the thing is, if you are a capable woman, if you are willing to do whatever it takes to be at the level that you want to be at, if you're willing to not necessarily work your ass off, but if you're willing to work smart, ask questions, not be ashamed of not knowing, if you're willing to put in the work to get where you want to go, there is nothing that will stop you from getting to that point. But the thing is, the reality is, you have to be willing to do what it takes to get there. And that doesn't mean just making money, because you can make a lot of money and you can spend a lot of money at the same time. Trust me, I've been there. I've been there where the household was making, a 5-digit salary per month and had nothing to show for it. Been there, okay? So you can make a lot of money, and that's not the beginning and end of it all. The thing is, you have to be able to make money, but you also have to know how to manage it. And if you are willing to do what it takes to make the money and know how to manage it, that doesn't mean that you can't get help or a financial plan or whatever. In fact, you should. But at the end of the day, you should never just rely on someone's word, because financial planners and advice comes with its own grain of salt that you have to give it. You should know for yourself what the numbers mean. You should know for yourself what your goals are and in general how to get there. You should be willing to educate yourself, because when you do that, you are absolutely capable of doing anything you need to do, and you absolutely will in probably a lot less time than you think. And check this out. I made a video about loving yourself and putting yourself first and making yourself your priority. Go check that out, because that also goes along with this topic here. There are people who make a lot of money. There are people who know the numbers and how they work, but they're so entrenched in their emotional connection to money that it doesn't allow them to act smart, which was also a fail of mine. So, I'll tell you my story first. I'll tell you what I did from there and how I've progressed and where I'm going. I came from a middle class household, maybe lower middle class. My mom worked as a beautician. My dad has worked and continues to work as a postal worker. And we never had any savings that I knew of. Everything when it came to money was always get the cheapest this. That's too expensive. Oh my God, is it that price? What is it, gold? It was always, do you got some Six Flags money? Do you got some filet mignon money? Like, look at the price before you order. Don't let this waiter come over here and you go ahead and ask for things we can't afford. Money was always a topic that we stayed away from. We didn't really try to delve too much into money matters, because in reality, my family didn't really have much education. Of course, they knew how to put money in the bank and what they could afford and what they couldn't, but they didn't really have the whole overview and understand how this whole money thing works. So, of course, when I went out into the world, having no work experience, of course, I had no idea what to do. I was pretty good when I first got my own job and everything, but as time progressed, I remember there was a point in time where I was just going through a really difficult time in university and ended up like maxing out my cards and getting, a big balance that I had to pay off from collections at one point. But anyway, when I went into my marriage, it was the same thing. I had access to a lot more money in that marriage, but when it came to savings, I said we should save, and my ex was like, "No, we'll never run out of money. We'll always have money." And the real situation was, it was not our money; it was family money, and for me, that's not my money. So we spent a lot of money. We had no savings, and we didn't really have anything of our own. And it was amazing, like I said, how we had an income in the 5-digit range per month, but nothing to show for it. And at the end of the day, I had similar issues with my own business. And so when I got divorced and decided I don't care how I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it, I decided part of my biggest struggle is understanding finance and numbers. I'm a creative person. I've always been. I've never been a super analytical in terms of like in terms of marketing or strategy or whatever. Yes, but in terms of numbers, I've never been like a very analytical person when it comes to understanding the numbers. And I began to understand that that was one of my biggest pitfalls. And so I began to do my research. I began reading articles. I began reading books. I began talking to people, asking questions. I talked to a financial planner. I talked to some friends. I've been reading Wall Street Journal for a very long time, Financial Times for a very long time. And I began to read those things more carefully. But one of the first books I read that really helped me understand that this whole finance thing was going to be a journey was You Were Born Rich, which was recommended by a friend, Anna, and I thank her for eternity for her help. You Were Born Rich. It definitely connects with you the emotional side of money to the actual physical side of money. And actually before that, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad. The first time I read that book, which you should definitely read and get, the first time I read that book, I had a kind of superficial understanding, but I didn't really understand what it was talking about. Now that I was getting back into understanding the numbers and really delving into it for my own understanding, I read it for a second and third time, and then I really began to understand like concepts where Robert Kiyosaki says money is not a thing. Money is whatever you can make it to be. Like you can make money like by literally creating money. Like you don't need to have physical cash to create value and create cash flow. You don't have to have cash in your hand to do a transaction. Like your money, your bank is as big as your imagination. And so I began to understand concepts like that when I read that book for the second and third time, really committed to understanding finance. So Rich Dad Poor Dad was a really good one. But the next one that really like got me on track was The Courage to Be Rich by Orman. Susie Orman. I remember my dad listening to her radio show like every day when I was younger, and I remember her being so brutal and so cutthroat and so like, she was just like, you can't afford that. Don't buy that, Roth IRA. I remember all of that, but I had never understood her backstory. I never understood where she came from with all of her advice, and I didn't understand how that related to me. And so when I read her book, The Courage to Be Rich, I was just like, and she talked about our relationship with money. So for example, she says that a lot of people don't want to be rich and block themselves from abundance because they believe that rich people are evil, that they have ulterior motives, that they're only looking out for themselves, that they're bad people. And she said, if you believe that, of course, you'll never allow the abundance in your life that you desire. But she said, money, if you stab money with a knife, it doesn't cry, it doesn't die. Money is nothing. Money is nothing. Money is only what you make it. So if you are a jerk, money will make you more of a jerk because it's directly tied to the person holding it. If you are a very kind person, it will make you much more of a kind person. Oprah, right? So let's say Trump and Oprah. Money on its own is nothing, but the desire to have money and be wealthy and the meaning behind that is directly connected to the person that it's tied to. And so understanding my connection with money and how my parents had talked about money and people with money before, the other side, the other half or whatever, understanding how my parents had talked about money, how people around me had talked about money, and the people who had the money made me realize like, wow, I really do have this bias and I really am blocking the blessings because I think that if I have this money, then I'm a bad person. But through my business, The Cake Lady, which is at thecakelady.ch. Through the Cake Lady, I met so many wealthy people. And I don't mean like rich, I mean healthy, okay? I met some really wealthy people, and by far they were some of the most kind, generous, loving, giving people that I could have ever met in my life. And when I really thought back to that, I thought, wow, yeah, I want to be wealthy because there are lots of things I want to do, lots of charitable things I want to do that are connected to money. So for example, in the situation with coronavirus, I would love to give my family, my community money and set up programs by which they could survive and thrive in this time that's difficult. If you have money, you can do that. I would love to build apartment buildings where people have, a centralized daycare and a meal center where the single moms are coming back home and they don't need to cook or clean, but they have the services from the apartment building, and it will cater to them to take care of their kids, to feed their kids, and when they get home, have something to eat for them, and then have cleaners come to their apartments, like once a week, so that they don't have to worry about cleaning and be all included in their housing program. That is one of my biggest dreams. I need money to do that, and of course you can operate with influence, but really, if you have to wait on the decision of somebody else, you don't have control of your contribution to society. It is my objective to be wealthy, and I have no shame in that whatsoever, because I know that the things that I want to do with my wealth are great things. So she really brought it to light that money is not bad. Money is great. Money is wonderful. And another book that I read, which was recommended by Tony Robbins, The Secret Mindset of a Millionaire, or the Secrets to a Millionaire Mindset, recommended by Tony Robbins. The guy says, if you're a religious person and people are telling you that you should be pious, you should be broke, you should be poor, that's the way to holiness, wrong. the thing is, the only way that you are really uh, becoming wealthy and sustaining that wealth is by offering value to the world. And if you're doing that in a conniving way, in a dishonest way, your life and everything around it will reflect that. But the people who have real riches and wealth, they're bringing value to the world and they're giving it out to everyone around them. And they're really contributing. So that is letting your light shine, as it said in the Bible. You know, you have to let your light shine, and whatever gifts, whatever positivity you have to offer to the world, you need to offer it to as many people as possible, and that's godly. You know, like right now, I decided to start doing these videos because I know that I've been through a long journey. I have all kinds of conversations with a lot of random people, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, I needed to hear that," and I'm like, you know what? I don't need to sit back there in the dark, in the shadows, not giving people this information because I feel like I don't want to be a show off. The point is, God gave me this knowledge for a reason. I'm going to share it. So, people who are very wealthy often are doing that. They're sharing a lot of value with the world, and for that, you are rewarded. And they are some of the most charitable people out there. And so, that book helped me understand that too, and understand that there's no shame in being ambitious and aspiring to something great. And so I've been reading a lot of books, like I told you, Secrets of a Millionaire Mindset, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, The Courage to Be Rich, Cash Flow Quadrant, my favorite, and You Were Born Rich. Those are really wonderful books to read. And then on top of that, I've just kind of Googled and understood like the little parts, like, you know, what are investments that I should look at? What level of investment should I look to get into first? How do stocks work? How do options work? How do CDs work? You know, how can I make my money work for me? And so you find so much information out there, and you kind of become a totally different person with this knowledge, and you understand that, you know, I don't need to work hard and be exhausted to live a life worth living. That's actually the wrong way to do it. And what I understand now is you need to work strategically and smart to make sure that you are not working for your money, but rather your money is working for your money. So Robert Kiyosaki, and then also the guy from The Secrets of the Millionaire Mindset, they say, you know, consider each dollar as a little soldier for you working for the well-being of your life. Every time you spend money, you have to think, is it worth whatever I'm buying? Do I need this Chanel purse? Or can that be like $500 working for me, for my future, in a way that I don't have to continuously work for my money, you know? Um, and they're saying like every dollar is a little soldier that's working for you, bringing back more dollars for you. And so you have to think about that in that way. One of my friends, actually, super sweet friend, love her to death. One of my friends, she lived with her parents for the longest time. I want to say like until her late 20s maybe. And she saved up money. She got a 5-bedroom house in our neighborhood. She's had that house. It's almost paid for. I think in a year or two it's going to be paid off. And we are 35, you know, paid off. She's an anesthesiology nurse. And so she said by the time her house is paid off in the next year or two, she's only going to be working like half time. Like she's only going to be working part time because she doesn't have to. She does what she does because she likes to. But with her rental income, she's able to make pure profit on that now, and she doesn't really need to supplement it with a lot of her career money, you know. And I'm like, wow, that was amazing, Ange. Like, it's how incredible is it that you did that? Her father was an accountant, and I'm sure he advised her about how to do that, and that's an amazing choice. And so it's just about making smart decisions and understanding that, you know, living a great life doesn't mean busting your butt and having to work tirelessly all the time. And if you understand, you know, the concept of compounding interest, like with a CD, for example, if you understand the idea of compounding interest, if you are interested by stocks that can yield you like a 10% return per year or more, depending on, you know, in the coronavirus situation, we have a lot of stocks that have gone down to only 40 or even sometimes 60. They've gone down like 60% in some cases. For example, I think the Marriott group, they're down like 60% almost. And so you buy that, hold on to it long term, you know, 5-10 years or whatever, and that's going to probably more than double. And it's just like, you know, understanding the concept by which you should invest, understanding what your life goals are, and understanding how to make that work without you having to be the sacrificial lamb, you know? And so I got all that information together, and now I'm able to live my life without doing a lot of emotional buying. What do I mean by emotional buying? I mean, a lot of times people buy things. So, for example, you know, designer purses, shoes, makeup, or whatever. A lot of times people buy things is because they want to feel better as a person. They want to feel validated. And when you need to feel validated by the things that you buy, you're never going to have enough money, ever. And you're always going to need more. And just because you buy nice things doesn't mean that you need the validation. But a lot of people who do emotional buying doesn't allow them to get to the next steps in life. It's because you are looking for validation. And that has to do with becoming a whole person and understanding yourself and understanding that you don't need anything to prove your value. And then once you get done with that, you're able to make wise choices that suit you and build your life. So I've gotten really aware of my habits when it comes to emotional buying. I've been able to rework that and then make wise decisions. And in those decisions, I've been able to lower my cost of living substantially. I've been able to plan ahead and take advantage of sales and promotions that in the future save me money. I've also begun to think about my businesses differently and my whole life differently. So since I'm running out of battery, I'm going to say, go ahead and read those books that I mentioned, number one, and number two, watch the video about loving yourself. And number three, think about your life's goals. Like I said, my life's goals are to contribute to my community of San Bernardino, California, and put together all kinds of programs that help Black people travel and understand their potential. That's not just in these government jobs and in the places that they are, but there's so much more out there. And I want to do that through travel, and then also set a system by which people can grow in my community and use all that to be an example to my kids. And part of helping our communities growing is having those conversations in the household about finances, about financial freedom, about getting out of your comfort zone and challenging your thought patterns. So those are my goals. Hope that you have some really wonderful goals, and I hope that you are able to read about things I talked about. And I will come back maybe with another video where I'm not running out of battery. But until then, I wish you lots of peace and love and happiness. And until the next time, bye.